The topics and opinions expressed on the following show are solely those of the hosts and their guests and not those of W4WN Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4WN Radio, its employees, or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4WN Radio.
Hi, and welcome to Chasing Purpose. I'm your host, Kathleen Conner, and it is a pleasure to be here today. If this is your first time here, I am really glad you found your way in, and I hope you stay a while. If you've been here before, well, welcome back. Today's topic is a great one, and I'm super excited about it. We're talking about satisfaction, and I mean true satisfaction, not the performative kind of satisfaction that we fake. Not that one, not the one we fake out of roles, familiarity, or societal pressure. When we call it fine, that may be us faking something. I mean the real kind of satisfaction where we can exhale, when we can fill our life that fits us, that we can have purpose within our choices and that they match our values and we don't have to prove anything to anyone. Because women are taught to be satisfied, grateful, and content with what we have. And we're no longer satisfied with just that. We want more. And here's somebody today that you're going to be excited about because I'm excited to have her. So Wendy Harrop is here today. Wendy's a phenomenal woman and she does it all. She has a bed and breakfast in Bolton, Massachusetts, Phineas Wright House. She has a podcast called Yes to You. And Wendy is just great. She has great energy. She's gone through some transformative things herself. She has a mother and she's purposely living her life for herself. So welcome, Wendy. I'm so excited to be here and have you.
Thank you for having me, Kathleen. It's a joy to be with you.
Yeah. So, the topic is a great one today, and I hope you feel a lot of energy around it too, because satisfaction, it's so different from anything that I think we ever experience. And until we really, really feel it and know what it means for us, we tend to fake it a lot, right? And as women, I think that it's so image purposed is what satisfaction is for us. So I want to ask you today, when you saw the topic around satisfaction, and let's not fake it anymore, what does it mean to you and for you?
Wow, it's such a great question. And as I've been reflecting on it, I've thought about really the different definitions that I've given to that word over my own personal evolution. So the kind of satisfaction that we liken to things that we're tolerating, things that how we're faking it, how we're just responding to the conditions of our society or whatever relationship we're in, that satisfaction is more of, again, a tolerating. It's something that, well, I guess this is as good as it's going to get. It's more of a giving up than what I've redefined for me satisfaction to be. I feel really great about what's happening. I'm using my agency and I'm eager for more. I'm in this element of gratitude and appreciation that defines my satisfaction, but I'm nowhere near done.
Yeah, that's perfect. I think I describe it as almost that satisfaction can change and evolve as we do, and I hope it does, right? So what we were satisfied with 20 years ago or 20 days ago may not be satisfying anymore. So, we can still find nutrition or sustenance or sustainability in those things that we had 20 days ago or 20 years ago, but they don't really fulfill us. They don't go to the core. And I look at core like, I've done this before with my intuition and my soul, because I think that's where satisfaction really comes from and is drawn to, is kind of that instinctual like, yes, this feels right all around, not just in my head, not just for society, not just in my heart as far as feelings, but that whole alignment with, it's okay to not be satisfied with what you were satisfied 20 years ago, 20 days ago, or 20 minutes ago. You may find something that you had for dinner last night, right, at a restaurant that you take home and again try to have it for lunch today. It may not have the same taste or feel or, the same comfort that it provided to you the first time you had it. And I think that that's where I'm struggling. And you and I talked about this prior, is the difference between satisfaction and happiness. And I think today it's talking more about how women, especially us, because I know I do, even on a sexual point, we can fake satisfaction, right? To move through something. We can be satisfied enough just to get it over with or move through to another situation. And I don't like that anymore.
I am 100% with you. I think that we're moving again from this idea that requires giving ourselves permission. So it makes perfect sense that what was delicious at the restaurant last night is not really hitting the mark today for lunch in the microwave after it's been stored in not an ideal situation. All of these things, and that makes perfect sense. But when we put that lens of what am I tolerating in my relationships, in my work, in my wardrobe, in my personal health journey, in the way that in my friendships, how my kids are talking to me, all of these things, instead of it having that make perfect sense that the pants that I bought 10 years ago are not doing it for me anymore. I'm allowed to have something new. And I think what can happen, and what is certainly was my habit before I got some intention around it and some agency, which I know we're going to talk about, pardon me, is making myself wrong for wanting something more. And I think that comes from, I know in my case, being a little girl and sitting in a room full of toys, but watching a commercial and asking for something new and having the response be, can't you just be happy with what you have? Why are you so selfish? Why are you? And of course, everyone's doing the best they can with the tools they have. And I'm not blaming my mother for all, like who knows what was going on for her when she made that statement. But I don't know how many times she said it out loud, but I know how many times it's been on repeat in my mind and with this internal soundtrack for decades that made me feel like I was being unreasonable to want something more.
Yeah, I think that that's a great point. And what I'm hearing you say is that the critical voice that we heard as children, as young girls, maybe from a father or from a parent or even a sibling or something along those lines, just gets on repeat. And then it becomes our critical thinking. It becomes our voice. It may still have the inflections and the tone and the memories of our childhood, but it's now carried with us every single day. It's not just because we've seen our mother or we've seen our siblings, those types of things. And I find that too, that as I was one of 7 and, we had all of our needs met, certainly, and most of our wants, but I was a kid that, although I love thrifting, I always wore hand-me-downs when I was a kid, and I had a lot of brothers. So a lot of the hand-me-downs I had were kind of boyish. I didn't have the canopy bed. I didn't have the, the easy bake oven that I always wanted. And I was so jealous of my friends and always wanted more. And I think that I just felt, as most little girls and now most women do, is that, it's not okay to tell people that we want more or to just want it, because our critical voice inside of us keeps saying, you have enough. Why do you need a new car? Why do you need a new wardrobe? Why do you need, you have 10 pairs of jeans from the last 30 years. Why can't you wear those into the next 30 years? But, styles change. My body changes, certainly. And just the whole look and feel of that, I want things to fit me and my life to fit me the way that I want it to, and not how it fit 20 years ago or 30 years ago. So I think it's impactful. So when you go through and you talk about agency a lot, I'd like you to just dive a little deeper into some of the things that you did that you found yourself not being satisfied, and how you incorporated your agency to really have that aha moment and to stand strong within yourself. So how do you start?
Well, a belief is just a thought we keep thinking. So as you mentioned, we get these ideas when we're kids and they are on repeat, and they just become the roadmap for how we manage our life experience. And then for me, at least, I heard a really convincing argument from another person. And it wasn't even actually an argument, but just a concept. So I've been an entrepreneur my whole life, my whole adult life. And I was wanting to shift my business to grow and expand. I had been a wedding planner for 25 years at that point. I had moved from California to Massachusetts, from wedding planner to wedding venue. I now had this beautiful historic home in Massachusetts. And I really wanted to, I wanted to be Martha Stewart. I still want to be Martha Stewart. So I joined this online business course, and it just happened to be January of 2020. And in the launching workshops to promote this online course, the woman was talking about, making money, doing what you love, and that nobody is sitting around thinking about how your life could be better. No one is coming to rescue you. Nobody is coming to hand this over to you. And I really thought that if I was the good girl, if I was making everything beautiful, if I was cooking and baking and tying pretty bows and doing all of these things, that my husband would invest in me or say yes, or an outside investor would say yes to my big idea, or somebody else that knew more would come and say yes to me. And what I learned in that process, of course, a lot of business things, but what I actually learned was I am the person that I am waiting to give permission. I say yes to myself. I am the only one who knows what I actually want and what it's going to feel like when it happens. And I had been outsourcing my power, my future, my dreams based on how somebody else felt about what I wanted to do. Like, of course, it doesn't make any sense now on this side of it, but I just really thought that that's how it worked. You just waited for somebody else to come and say, be discovered. And so it was this hearing, and how they say, when the student is ready, the teacher appears. I think Buddha actually said that. And so I was finally ready to hear those words, and all of the cooperative components that came together. Of course, we all know what happened in 2020. So now I have this newfound agency, this newfound determination, this new life of giving myself permission. And then the whole world shut down. And for me, that turned into a creative incubator of what do I want? So, it's great to say, oh, you just say yes to yourself. You just give yourself permission. You just get to be, do, and have whatever you desire. That sounds really fun and really fabulous, but it requires knowing what you want. And so that's where I started, was spending time with my journal and just really being introspective. What is it that I want, and why do I want it?
So powerful. I go back to, again, I was a business executive for a long time, my whole adult career. And one of the first books and methodologies that I learned was a Stephen Covey. And one of the principles that he always spoke about was, starting with the end in mind. And I think it's so appropriate with what you're saying, because you have to define what you want, and then how you have to back into how you get there. So you have to, so manifestations, people do it all the time. I do it. I'm sure you do it with your journaling, those types of things. We want to see our lives differently. And then we put energy out there, we put people out there, or things, our money or whatever it is, and our tools, but we have to do the work to get there. And I think that society, and especially women, and I know you and I have talked about this before because we're so like-minded, we tend to think that enough is, right? Or that we're happy enough. We're, and then, or there's this term that I use called comfortable complacency, right? So those two words should never be together. Like, you shouldn't be comfortable with complacency. I mean, I find that when people and women come to me through my coaching, that they want more, but they have to realize that wanting more and doing more are two different things. And it's also, I just had this conversation the other day. It's not necessarily about more, it's about different, right? Like, we want, our husbands, our spouses, our kids, we use the term more from them when we don't necessarily want more, because they only have the capacity that they want to have. It's really what we want is different. We want them to behave different. We want them to interact differently with us. So I'm trying to shift the tone about wanting more, because that's not really what it's about. It's about wanting different. Because don't you think that there's a huge difference between, especially in relationships, or especially in kind of your want, when you say, we're waiting on other people for permission. I think in society, we often are afraid that people think and talk and want to know more about us than they actually do. We're not that important to people. We just think that we are. So what do you think about the more versus different when it comes to satisfaction or to happiness?
So interesting. So my language is more over different, only because, again, I think it has to do with definition, right?
Right.
Because for me, the more is building on what's already here. So I think of more as evolution, as refinement, as development, as I only knew what I knew when I decided what I wanted, and now I know more. So now I want more. And, there's a fine tuning for that. And the other thing that you mentioned about being in relationship with people, a part of my reinvention, my recalibration, my transformation, that I really do have this kind of this milestone, this touchstone of, before January 2020, I was one person, and that was really a turning point. It really was, it unlocked a door that took me in a completely different trajectory in my life. And I like that It's measurable. I can look back and say, well, okay, it's been 6 years since I've been this new version of me, and I love her. She's amazing. I'm obsessed. I want more of her. And a part of the very early years of this transition for me with regard to relationship was, as I was learning these things and I was growing and I was developing, I wanted other people to behave differently. Yes.
Right.
Because that was now, it's like, oh no, I have a secret now. Like, I know some things and you are not responding the way that I need you to respond for me to stay in this high vibe, happy, growing space. But what shifted for me was I was working with a coach, and I was also sitting in the question of my marriage, and she gave me a phrase. I have sticky notes all over this board in front of me. When I hear something on a podcast, or if I'm reading a book or something just comes to me, a phrase that resonates, I like to look at it over and over and over again to really get it in there. And she gave me the phrase, own your experience. And that sat on the top of my computer screen for several months. And what that meant for me was what now the language that I have for that would be unconditional alignment. But it was me having the experience that I desired, and that experience, not I want a happy marriage, that experience of I want to have joy. I want freedom. I want joy. I want choice. I want peace. And as long as I was requiring him to act in a certain way for me to feel good, then I'm going back to outsourcing all my power, and I am in the process of learning agency. So a part of this agency was, okay, I'm no longer going to hold anybody else responsible for my happiness, for my joy, for my satisfaction. It's an inside job. I'm not going to blame anybody, and I'm not going to rely on anybody to give me what I need to have the experience that I want. So in doing that, which was no joke, because what it meant, if I'm going to own my experience, it meant I have to let everybody else own theirs too. And this was before Mel Robbins' book, Let Them Theory. And, that would have been helpful, but that really was exactly what I was doing. Was I needed to let my husband, now ex, do whatever he was going to do and be joyful anyway. I was going to let the pandemic do what it was going to do and be joyful anyway. I became the source, the creator, the deliberate creator of my experience. And that shifted everything for me, because I had been what Terry Cole talks about in her book, Boundary Boss. She talks about this high functioning codependency, which is my inability to witness another person experience the consequences of their action or inaction. So I was managing the comfort level of my husband so that he would have a happy experience, which would then in turn give me a happy experience. But I was exhausted because I'm not inside of his head. So his happiness target was moving. So it just made me, it was just not a sustainable life, although I did a really good job for 22 years. But when I was done, that's the thing, is for me, it's like, okay, I want more. I want different. I want, but I'm not holding you responsible for my happiness, but I'm also not available to sacrifice my happiness for your comfort.
Yeah, I think it's so powerful. Your stories just resonate with me, and I'm sure with everybody, about what people really put themselves through and try to please people and try to do things. So often we just, for years and decades, I think we just try to satisfy. And so when you were talking, I was thinking about the difference between the more and different and more and different. And I think I heard it resonate with me that I want more for myself. I want more abundance, more happiness, more joy, more satisfaction. And those things I can give myself, right? I have to learn to receive them within myself. And the difference is that I want to behave differently or have other people behave differently with me so that I can receive, right? So they're so different from each other, but so complementary, because if you continue to stay in the same patterns all the time without difference, how do you even acknowledge more? How do you get more, right? How do you get fulfilled? And I think as women, and especially with my clients, I'm sure you see this as well, that we look for outside validation, right? We look for, that we have to play a role. We have to be the good wife, the great employee, the people pleaser. As you're saying about the wedding planner and doing the perfect entertaining and the perfect houses and making the perfect bows, that's maybe why you wanted to receive compliments, right?
Yeah.
Or you wanted to receive gratification, like, oh my God, what an amazing table setting. Again, I don't know the terms, but so you were showcasing your talents, which are great, and to look for external validation and appreciation for your hard work. Right. Mm-hmm. And I think instead, as women, we have to learn. It's great to hear a compliment. I think that we don't hear them enough as women, personally. And I think when we do, we tend to justify them, right? I mean, someone would say to me, like, hey, great pair of shoes. And I would just tell them, prior to my own aha moment, that I would tell them, oh, I bought them at a thrift store. Oh, I've had these forever. Or I would just justify or make excuses of why I was wearing them, instead of just saying, yeah, they are great, thanks, and you look great too. I think we don't receive compliments because we don't hear them, because we're not used to receiving them. And then we often don't give them either. I try to compliment somebody that I don't know at least 3 times a day, the store clerk, the lady in the grocery store, the guy in the elevator, anything that says, hey, great smile today, or, hey, that's a great shirt. Just something little that catches them off guard, that makes them realize that, hey, they can shine with and get acknowledged for shining. So I think it's so powerful. So that's what I learned just while you were talking. So thank you very much. Was the difference between like more and different, because I do want more for myself, and I do want more from my son, and I do want more from my lifestyle, and I do want more for my business and all of those things. But I also want to treat people differently with grace, of course, and I want to be treated differently too. So you put boundaries up, and you think I think boundaries can be a thing that starts maybe satisfaction. Maybe that's the most satisfying thing within satisfaction itself, is just that little step of a boundary. I don't know. What do you think?
Well, anytime we are shifting our mindset, our practices, our desires, our expectations, if you had an aha moment, I had this touchstone of this course in 2020. So it's not just, oh, I had an epiphany and then all of a sudden my life is just champagne flutes and blue skies and unicorns. I mean, it is, but it takes practice. It takes intention. So when I've created now a gap, I am no longer available to live the way that I was living. I'm no longer available to be treated or not treated the way I desired. And I can't just make those statements and then walk around with my now empty basket because I dumped everything out I didn't want. I need to now refill with practices that are in service to the woman I'm becoming. So for me, I created a personal mantra that I was only available for what delights me. So that was a way of, it was a softer way of me operating in my agency and owning my own experience, because it felt like a heavy lift to now live my life in the complete opposite way that I ever had and still feel like a lovely person. You know, I didn't take this course and decide, okay, F you, husband. Like, no, I was growing. I wanted this to be something that we could both expand into, this new understanding and knowledge. And so it was a good thing. He just wasn't available for it. But instead of me focusing on what he was not available for, I doubled down on what I was available for. And that was delight. And so it gave me something to focus on. It gave my mind something to do. It gave my body something to do. It provided a new filter to run anything that somebody asked me to do, or even the chores I needed to do on the farm. It was just a new way of thinking. And so that filled the gap. And I added a morning practice. So now I was getting up early every day. I'm journaling, I'm reading, I'm meditating. I'm not just saying, I want more, I want different, I'm not satisfied, I want to be happy. I'm saying, what do I want? What does satisfaction feel like? What does it look like? What is happy? And is that okay? Am I allowed to be happy? What if happy means not married anymore? Like, ooh, is that, oh, okay, that feels scary. That feels like I could lose a lot of my community and my relationships around if I make that decision, because I grew up in church and I was a part of a church community at that time. And my understanding of the Bible was, if he's not beating you or cheating on you, you got to suck it up. You got to just be satisfied. You have to hang in there and be good, and your reward will be in heaven, and all of these things. And I had to make a decision that I really feel was divinely inspired, that was different than the societal conditioning that I had grown up in. And I could not have made that epic decision. I could not have had that courageous conversation without the foundation building of my own personal alignment, what I wanted, why I wanted it, and the peace that came from being guided by God to discover and identify what these things were. And then I believe that my courage set both of us free.
Nice. Powerful. I'm also, so again, I lead with grace. We've talked about that before as well. Grace over grudge, you lead with grace. And now I'm really thinking that grace is certainly important and we need it in our lives. We don't have enough of it in society right now, that's for sure. And but I also love the term delight. I don't know if that fits me enough, or if it's joy or something or passion. Or mine seems to, maybe, and yours is great for you, but maybe mine's a little bit more colorful, a little bit more energetic, because that's how I feel that I am. I think grace is always great, but I'm also thinking, like, with grace, I tend to, sometimes I bow out, right?
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I take the high road, and you always want to take it. Sometimes I take it too quietly,
Mhm.
or, that I don't set a boundary before I take it. So with grace, has to come with something. So grace, and I think not a grace or, it's not, oh, I chose grace, so therefore I couldn't be delighted or I couldn't find joy. It has to be both, it has to be an and type thing. So I'm thinking, as you're talking, I'm thinking, wow, that's so great. The delight thing is so perfect for you, because I think that you are so delightful and I can see that energy around you. And I think delight is what is great for me too. It's just not a word that resonates with me. It's not a feeling that I feel is delight or delightful. I'd have to think of something to really have more bang, because I think if I'm going to do it, I'm an all or nothing kind of gal, right? We all, like you said, we all want it all. And so I just feel like it's, to me, maybe it's passion. Maybe it's
Love
like
it.
that energetic, that vibration. We talk about, you and I talk about the collective soul and the collective mind and being in charge of our own destiny. And that, spirituality is a big thing in our life as well. And that we have to find that word. And it's not more than a word. It's kind of a feeling. We have to find a word that describes the feeling, I think, around grace. And so you have me thinking. I'm really going to put a lot of thought into what that means, because I think that grace has been great, and it was great because it kept me from not being triggered. It kept me from not responding or reacting in a heated or in a hot moment. And I don't mean as far as temper or any of those types of things, but I chose grace for the last year or so to just kind of just pause. I used it as kind of that pause, like I want to just lead with grace, that pause moment. And now I think I still want grace, because I want it to be elegant and, graceful, and I want it to be, impactful. And grace is still important and still going to be there for me, but now I need something else.
Right. And, there, of course, whatever word you land on, grace is a tenet of that word.
Right.
Right. So delight, it's bubbly, it's effervescent, it's joy, it's twirling around, it's dreamy. Like that's who I am.
Right.
And so gratitude, which is beautiful, but it feels too little for what I am.
Well, that's what I was thinking, because I take the high road a lot. I mean, I do take the high road, and I like to take the high road, but I often take it almost too quietly. I don't set a boundary before I take it. I'm better with it now. Even in the last couple of weeks or so, I've been saying like, hey, that did hurt me, and here's what it is. And then you receive silence afterwards. And when I receive silence afterwards from somebody, a worker or a coworker or a colleague or a client or a partner or any of those types of things, I often, prior to the grace thing, I would leave those conversations thinking like, I wasn't heard, or I didn't receive the reaction, and feeling like I didn't deliver it enough. And then I realized that it wasn't my emotional maturity or my emotional availability. It was theirs, that they couldn't land where that I wanted them to. So therefore I was like, okay, that's grace. Then you give them grace.
Interesting. Yeah, I think it would be a really fascinating journal prompt of what am I tolerating that I've been calling grace?
Yeah. That's exactly. I'll have to do that tomorrow. And throughout, I think it's more than just one journal prompt. I think it's also, I've been dealing and talking a lot about pleasure and passion, and it's the same thing around satisfaction. And I think that they're so different, but yet maybe it's the pleasure piece and the passion piece that I think that they're both so important. And I feel as a woman, we're so tied to roles and societal optics and pressure and how people perceive us or how we put our image out, and I think that we're just not, I don't know, there's a level of internal satisfaction that we have to lead with, that we just have to say, like, I don't care. I was just having this conversation again with a friend of mine about, a decision that we were both contemplating, or she was contemplating. And I was just like, I don't care what people think anymore.
Exactly.
It's
exactly.
I think I would think differently if my mom was still alive. Like, of course I would care if she was, but I lived, 1,700 miles away from her. So she was sheltered by a lot of the things going on in my life. And we talked about with a client and them looking for permission to separate from their husband or do something. They wanted other people's opinions all the time. They were going, and what they were telling stories about was only like 10% or 2% of their situation. And it was always after they processed it, right? So no one ever really heard the hot emotion or the cool emotion or any emotions. It was always the venting session. Oh, I hate my job. This is what happened today. Or my kid did this, or my partner did this, or the teachers did this type stuff. And then they come back and give opinions on the little tiny amount that you've given them. And you take it like it's so heavy and so weighted that you have to mix it into your experience. And you have to say, well, oh, that was their opinion. You remember this person said this and they had a good, and instead of looking at it as a perception, we look at it as an opinion. And I think that's, as women, we're just, I don't know, we tend to, we tend to be quieter than I think we need to be.
Yeah, that's so fascinating. We've been leaning into this question of wanting more. And I think that not spending a lot of time there, but to identify what we want more of, it's helpful to acknowledge what we want less of. Like what I'm actually, like, I am only available for what delights me, but that came from, I am no longer available to be in a loveless marriage. I am no longer available to take on clients that are not aligned. I am no longer available to make decisions from a place of lack or scarcity or fear or social optics or I'm just not. And all of those decisions and how little I care. I mean, that feels so terrible to say I don't care. It would be impossible for me to care less about what anybody thinks about what I'm doing.
Right.
Like and it is a practice. That is not the Wendy Harrop that prior to January of 2020. It's also, I'm not the Wendy Harrop that I was 6 weeks ago. I am in this consistent, conscious, deliberate, intentional evolution that instead of worrying about other people's opinion or how this is going to impact my daughter, my clients, my community, I don't care. And what I'm rising to, the resonance, the vibration, the radio station that I am on, more people are coming to meet me on that same radio station, on that same level. I'm not alone. I have community. I didn't lose everything. My yes didn't cost me my marriage. My marriage was costing me my yes. These other relationships they played a role and now it's not in alignment. And I'm not just like a cold-hearted B word now. I'm just so aligned and I memorize what that feels like. And I know that it is in service to everyone that I am meant to serve. And for the people that are not happy with that, I don't make that my work. It's not my work.
Yeah. Oh, so strong. Yeah, I think that's so powerful and so strong because we can only carry so much, right? We can only carry so much. So if we're carrying other people's emotions or other people's images of us or other people's, lifestyle or other people's things, we can't carry our own, right? So, we're constantly asking, maybe our teachers or our kids or any of that to do more, again, back to that. But if they can't carry more, they have to put something down, right? In order to be, felt by somebody or marriage or partners or anything, they have to put something down. Like their priorities are important, but they have to pick a relationship up and invest in it, right? Just like we do. We can't just put it down and walk away. We can, but maybe not, and maybe gently or with grace or those types of things, with kindness and compassion. But we have to, if we're not ready for a relationship, then don't pick one up. if we're not ready for, if we're not ready for those, to give the energy, to give the intent. And when you're talking about frequency, radio frequency and people joining your station, I talk about emotional baseline, right? It's that emotional baseline. We've talked about it, right? I mean, that's why when you suddenly, you meet new people, you have new opportunities, because you're finding like-minded things, you're finding things to stick with you and at you, because you've raised your ability and your capacity to gather more, because you've put other things down, right? I mean, the relationship that I had 20 or 30 years ago, that was at an emotional baseline of a 3, it fit me because I was a 3 and because he was a 3. But when I became a 20, that didn't work for me anymore. He couldn't keep up with my being a 20 because it was exhausting to him. Those didn't meet his needs. It was too much for him to carry. So I had to put down a 3 relationship gently and with grace, and realize that, yes, that was a great experience. And I learned a lot. And mostly what I learned was that I can't reduce myself. I have to rise to the level that I'm at, and also rise above it, so I can continue to grow, continue to learn, meet new people, new experiences, and find that magnetic energy again. And we all know what it feels like. I think it's such a shame that women feel it, once or 3 times or 5 times in their lives, and then they just give it up. And you're like, no, get it back. It's that whole alignment. It's that whole satisfaction. So we do whatever we can to satisfy everybody else's needs except for our own. And I think we have to get back to stopping faking it, right? We have to get back to stopping trying to do all things for others except for ourselves. I think we have to lead with doing things for ourselves first.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I know in my relationships, as you do as well, you try to satisfy other people so that they're happy, and therefore their happiness will bring you happiness. But that's not sustainable. You can't keep someone happy and their happiness make you happy. Yes, for a short period of time, but it becomes very, I don't know, it's not sustainable for me. I don't know if it is for you. I just don't think it is. It's not for me.
No, not at all. I think it comes back to this alignment. It comes back to knowing what our work is, owning our own experience, allowing other people to own theirs. There's an idea that helped me with that. And that was, I travel a lot. I lead culinary trips to France for solo female travelers, and I'm always just following my own bliss. And if I'm at baggage claim and all of this luggage is coming around, I'm not going to take somebody's bag that doesn't have my name on it. And so in a lot of these relational dynamics, that bag does not have my name on it. So I am not going to pick it up, and I am not going to try to fix something that isn't my work, but I'm going to be the woman that I'm supposed to be, and either bring people to the desire to rise themselves, or the desire to remove themselves from this relationship. And you talked about also, meeting everybody else's needs, and the other visual that I do better with pictures.
Yeah, me too.
So for me, and we talk about this on my podcast, Say Yes to Yourself, all the time, is that we give from our saucer. So we all know you can't give from an empty cup, and everyone says you got to fill your cup, which is true. But we fill our cups until they're overflowing, and then we give from that overflow. We give from the saucer, and then when the saucer is empty, we fill ourselves up again. And it doesn't take as long because it was already at the top, and then we give from the saucer. So it is a part of this alignment is not only effective to our outward facing responsibilities and relationships and work and all of the things that we do all day long. It's in service to us, and it requires time and checking in. And again, for me, that is daily, every morning. And I allow myself to be guided based on what my alignment feels like. And that is always growing, always expanding, always evolving. And that's why more is what I want.
Yeah, it's a great example. And I love your baggage example as well. I use the wheelbarrow. You know, you can only push so much of somebody else's shit in your wheelbarrow. So you got to put it down every once in a while. But I like your analogy and your metaphor of the baggage and the baggage claim, because we don't want to touch other people's baggage. We don't want to take it with us. We have enough around. But, you know, Wendy, I want to thank you for today. I've learned so much about what you're doing and how you've improved around satisfaction, and certainly have taken away some things from myself as well. And I think that satisfaction shouldn't be negotiated. It's a point that you deserve, and that we all deserve, and we have to figure out what it is. So I just want to thank everybody for showing up here today, especially you, Wendy. You're such a powerful woman, and I hope people find you on your podcast and at your bed and breakfast as well. It's a great location, and you do wonderful things, and your culinary stuff happening in Europe. So go find Wendy. She's great. And until everybody gets there, satisfaction is it. So I thank everybody for listening today, and I'll see you next time. And until then, keep chasing your purpose. I appreciate y'all.